Magic is found in every room, where people connect over a shared purpose. Luke, Hannah and Chris explore the role of purpose, courage, mindset and culture in every leader's quest for transformational performance.
Welcome to Magic in the Room. I am Hannah Bratterud.
And I'm Chris Province.
And I'm Luke Freeman. And we're recording today in beautiful Tulsa, Oklahoma. Good to be here with you all.
Yeah, good to be here.
Yeah. Okay, so for listeners, as you've probably noticed, this season is a little bit more conversational, a little bit less curriculum driven. And today we're going to kind of get in the deep end of the pool and talk about some harder things. As we were chatting through, like, what are some helpful topics for the podcast? We really came across and kind of stumbled across this idea of like just really hard stuff that leaders have to manage. And I'll just kind of frame this by saying, when we believe, as we all believe, that leadership of a community is something we want our workplaces to be and feel like, when it feels more like a community where the relationships are holistic, they're human being to human being. And they're not these like, well, this is my work self and this is my family self. And the person I'm working alongside doesn't even know that I have kids, or whatever. When we embrace that, there are complexities that come along with it. And when someone gets sick, or when someone dies, or when we have someone that's not performing, or maybe they're disruptive in the workplace, but we know them in this wider thing. I mean, it's not like we'll send them to HR is the only answer. Or, well, hey, go look at FMLA policy. Like, it's more complicated than that. And I don't think we're doing ourselves a service if we try and simplify it to what does policy say. So as we jump in here, I mean, we're just going to jump into the deep end. Like, we've had some experiences over this last year that like made us think this was a good topic. So, I mean, you all want to share a little bit about like why this today, why have this conversation?
Yeah. Um, well, one, I mean, just to name the fact that, our friend, my best friend, like Doug Woodard, is not here anymore. And some of our listeners met Doug. He was very influential with the development of our comms framework, the idea of how to, mission command, like decentralized operation of a very focused on objective team of teams, OKRs, a lot of the things that show up in our practices today, he really brought and developed within the organization, having been a 22-year military veteran and, um, served his country honorably, and was a person that I was so excited. I met Doug in 1984, in fourth grade. And, we went to college together. We're roommates for 4 years there. Really did everything in life up to entering the workforce. And he went into the armed forces or was in the Air Force. And, I would go wherever he was. If he was in Germany, I go to Germany. If he was in, where we happened to be. When he was in Hawaii, I went to Hawaii, so on and so forth. So I think there are 3 or 4 times where we just went where he was to spend time and stay connected. And, as he retired, it was really a time of excitement, for to have a chance to reconnect and do meaningful work. And man, he made amazing contributions to our work product and our ability to help other leaders and organizations. In addition to that, the and is, Doug carried with him a lot of trauma and had severe PTSD. Not something that was even diagnosed when he came onto the team, right? But we experienced in working with him what that meant, right? Um, and at the end of the day, like we made decisions as a team to allow Doug to focus on the help that he was needing, that we can't provide him as a work community. Found other ways to keep his career active,
Yeah.
right? While doing that, but ultimately, like, he lost the battle. We lost alongside him,
Mhm.
and grieve that today. Like, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him not being here, or me not having someone that I did so much life with. Um, but it's not something that's in the strategic plan. It's not in the strategic plan that one of our key team members is going to go through this battle. It's not in the strategic plan that someone's going to be, diagnosed with cancer and have to be up for treatment. It's not in the strategic plan how the team members are going to react to these things occurring. It's when we lose a team member, whether that is death, whether they go out unexpectedly, whether, I mean, we had a situation, Luke, someone on a team, a senior leader, was thrown in jail,
Yeah.
and they were in jail for a month. So then what? Like, these things that are like, oh my God, like,
Yeah.
what now? And everyone's looking at, as a senior leader, me or you or the listener that's out there right now. All eyes turn to the senior leader when this hard stuff happens. And I'm going to be real honest, like, I'd never dealt with it before.
Yeah. Yeah, and before we jump into like what do we do? If you haven't experienced this as a leader, something similar, I think the same problem at a smaller scale is like this team member is disruptive. You're sitting at a meeting or you're at some sort of team event and this person says something or does something that you're like, oh my gosh. And everyone looks at you and they're like, how can this person still work here? That you have responsibility for them. And we work with a lot of tribal government and tribal enterprise. And then I can think of 10 people off the top of my head that they've got a leader of a program or an agency or a staff member that is also a community member and also maybe a relative. And they have to make the decision every day, is today this person's last day? Or are we going to try it again tomorrow? And if it is their last day today, knowing that they're going to lose income, but still be a neighbor and a community member, what do I do? How do I lead that?
And families of team members, even if it's not the team member themselves, but it could be a leader's family, team member's family that are experiencing similar type of trauma with a loved one, with a family member, things that are difficult to process or navigate emotionally
Yeah.
when a when a family member isn't doing well, or you lose a family members struggles, it does affect the emotional health and dynamic for that individual team member and also their contribution.
Yeah.
And sometimes that person is the leader.
That makes me think of something. Is there a function where, because we don't give this any attention when we're planning, or the default setting is to not give it attention during planning, knowing like this is going to happen somewhere on a team of any size
Yeah.
every year?
Yeah.
But I would say we're dismissive of it in planning, so we're dismissive of the event as well. Even if you're the team member that has the family that's in treatment, or that you just lost your spouse or your mother, or you know, are we pressured then to show up in that workplace dismissive of what I'm experiencing outside of it? And then as leaders, when those things happen with our team, with our very own team members, are we dismissive to the remaining team members
Yeah.
about that event?
Yeah.
And I think that it's like how we plan for it might be how we treat it. And if we don't want to see it as we approach the year, we're probably not going to see it during the year.
That's a really interesting thought. And I haven't really heard it articulated just like that. But I do remember when I was first learning about effective strategic planning, part of the planning is to plan for the unexpected and how will you recover when, like planning is like, think of planning a road trip and there are going to, or any adventure, there are going to be obstacles. And a good plan has to include what happens when the unexpected happens. How do I get back on track? How do I get back to the trail? If there's, if I'm derailed, how do I navigate back? If there's a roadblock or I have to circumnavigate, the plan has to involve how, because if we just accept that we are going to have disruption and we allow for that in the plan, and there is a plan for how to get things back on track when, not if, they get derailed.
Yeah.
That's a much stronger plan that is less fragile
Yeah.
than
It's exactly the word in my mind. Like designing for unfragility. Yeah. To go back to our episode about takeaways from 2024 and looking ahead to this year, one of the things that I shared about 2024 is that just being so busy that communications slipped, right? And even as we were preparing for this episode, kind of talking about some of these things that were hard, like this hard stuff, sickness, loss, challenges with the team. We had ahas, just the three of us, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Or I didn't know that until a month later. Or I didn't know that until 3 months later. Then that's the practical consequence of us being overbaked in what we're doing. We were fragile. Like I, as a leader, was fragile in dealing with some of these things because, gosh, I was just so busy just getting the shit done that I did not give the team, and I'll say, like, even among the three of us, I did not give us the time and the communication a caring leader should have, just around, hey, here's some things going on with our team and how do we respond to this mindfully and not just, oh, I'm going to DoorDash them some food and I just do it at midnight and I, don't even tell anyone else. Right. Which is great. Right. I mean,
the
that's
intention
something.
is in the right place.
Right. Right. It's not a lack of care. It's a lack of planning is what I hear you saying with that, Chris.
Right. I think, what enables us to be more embracing when those situations arise is maybe at a minimum, if we just know what, if we identify how to augment staff, regardless of what the cause may be, if we have that plan going into the year of if something were to happen and we lost staff unexpectedly, maybe they're coming back, something like an illness, maybe they're not coming back, something like a death, but there's a plan to how we augment staff. It's also why, regardless of what size your company is, having processes to your workflows so that people can understand how work gets done. And I would argue the smaller your organization, the more important it is to have those workflows.
Yeah.
Right. And this idea of like, don't come in here being all corporate-y, making this new processes and stuff, but the whole idea is like that. Who is,
I had to guess.
no, it's just in general, like, it just feels like that's what we hear. It's like, well, you're doing $3 million worth of business a year. I know you may not feel like that's a lot, but it's certainly a lot based on the fact you only have 15 people doing the work. And if
Right.
nobody knows how that one person is doing the work, you're putting 30% at risk. Do the measurement and you're creating a lot of unnecessary suffering. So I would name that is more important for small business to have processes, is the large ones probably already have it,
Yeah.
right?
They have something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
More people to fill the gaps, right? I think the gaps are felt more acutely in a small organization.
and the last kind of just trying to give some hard things that you just here's some practical approaches. Know how you're going to augment staff, have defined processes that anyone that walks in can understand, and also like don't accept tech debt. Like stay on top of your tech stack and your tech enablement so that your work is also being done efficiently. And that's going to give you optionality and kind of design some anti-fragility into your system.
I'm going to add a fourth thing there, which is have appropriate cash or access to lines of credit. And, this is something that we're thinking about on our team because just the way we're designed, and this isn't everyone, we want to return as much of the economic pot that has been generated by our team back to the team as possible. But that stands, it's when and how is the question, right? Because that could be in conflict with, do we have enough cash on hand if something happens, when something happens? One, to be generous and supportive. And two, can you hold a position for 6 months for someone who's not well? Or can you hold a position for 2 years for someone that's at half their level of productivity that they might normally be?
Mm.
And we got to plan if we want to be able to do that and care for people. And so, what amount of saying no to capital reinvestment
Mm.
should we be prepared to do? These are all hard questions.
There are questions and they're complicated, and you mentioned in the introduction, Luke, that this is more than just a policy or a plan.
Mhm.
It's more complicated than that. The technicals and having the plan, it can feel, I think Chris used the word clinical, it's very clinical, but it is a part of creating a structure that can support that type of organizational care that a caring leader would want to see. And when that isn't in place, the intention of care doesn't always have the effect that you would want because there isn't the structure to support it. And this is more complicated because it's human factors, right? It does go beyond policies and
Mhm.
plans. And yet, if we really want to care for human beings and create thriving communities at work, that is an important part of a strategic plan. It should be, right?
Yeah.
But to your point, Chris, it usually isn't.
And I love what you said, Hannah. Like this is beyond, like this is the hard stuff. Cybersecurity incident, that's difficult. Okay. But it involves the same thing. If I think about cybersecurity, what am I doing? Well, I got to know how to augment the staff. Who's the PR team? Who's the tech team? Who are my additional hands? What's the comms? What's the crisis management framework? All that. What's the don't take tech debt? Have processes like, okay, those are all the same. Okay, but we're talking about people.
Yeah.
And so what makes it different is how I respond to this deeply personal, emotional type challenge,
Mhm.
and how teammates respond to this challenge. And in these spots, this is why I'm always like pro EAP, and having an EAP, in the event of a death, someone that was here yesterday and isn't coming to work today, which I've managed through on multiple occasions, unfortunately. There's someone that we can call and have on site and somebody to be there for the staff to help them in ways that I don't know how to help them because I need the same help.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it's I remember, when Doug passed away, Luke, you called me and said, hey, you know, like the team, like they're looking to you, like I know that, you were his friend and you know, but guidance, processing something, from you seems to be important right now. And for me, so much was going on
Yeah.
that I didn't know what to say
Yeah.
because this was beyond the bounds of work that we do. It's not like I had just a work relationship with this person. It was an
Right.
authentic relationship and it was a deep relationship. And I didn't know how I felt. I like,
You haven't had any chance to process it, and that was a big thing to process. That was
sure.
going to take time. There's a reason it's a year later when we're having this conversation
Yeah.
publicly.
Right. And like even, yeah, before we hit, all morning, I'm like, do I bring this up? Do I bring this up? Is this something we want to talk about on the podcast? Can I keep it together?
Yeah.
And I think that what helps is the way that we're talking about it and like just trying to share from a space of like, here's some things that we experienced that we all should be prepared for. And yeah, it's what do I do as the leader when people are looking at me for some sort of communication when I don't know what I believe about what just happened,
Yeah.
other than, because yeah, I don't know what I think about this thing. Like I lost someone that I loved a lot and it's contributed a lot to this team, but we have to stay focused on helping people, which is our
Yeah.
commitment. But that's totally not honoring the fact that everyone else on the team worked with Doug too.
Yeah.
And like have probably a lot of the same feelings that I mean, I don't even know what I think about the situation.
Yeah.
And I would imagine everyone else felt that way too.
Right.
So what do you do?
Yeah, it's such a good example. I'm glad you brought that up because it's not a fair ask of you. It's not fair. And it's a real need. And I think, we're using this example of me calling Chris here, but I think for all of us, even internally, even if you simplify it to, I've got a disruptive person that's a community member, but I'm just not sure they're fit anymore. It's not fair to ask yourself to make a decision there because you have so many competing, conflicting interests, and you're a human being too. And whether you knew it or not, that's the game you signed up for when you became a leader. I'm gonna just get on my pulpit here. Like, we do a shit job as a culture preparing people to do that, right? Like, my kids are not talking about that in school. Hey, by the way, when you're responsible for other people, you're going to have to do some EQ grunt work, and there's going to be impossible situations, and you're going to get things wrong. And what do you do when that happens? Or you're going to have something that you didn't do. It's not your responsibility. Like, you didn't cause it, you didn't create it, but someone threw a problem in your lap. And what do you do in that moment? I mean, I don't have the answer to it,
Well,
right?
it's the heart, and I think what I want to do is detrimental to what we have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to everybody take time, process as you need. And the truth of the matter is the world continues to spin and business continues to get done. And that relies on us to contribute.
I tip and trick. We've talked about this on the podcast before. And I don't know why, but this feels like to me when I'm coaching a leader, It's like every other session this comes up. But like the answer is in just saying it, right? There's a lot of power in what you just said, which is here is the situation, and I don't know what to do. And I feel like either way, I'm getting it wrong. And I mean, how many times do I feel like that? Here's the situation. I've got these people that need this, and these people that need this, and me that needs this third. And I don't know what to do because whatever I choose, one or two groups or myself lose out. And so based on what I know, I'm going to make this choice, and I'm so open to feedback on it, and I feel like we got to do something and make a decision. And guess what? If you start a meeting with that, usually it goes better than not. Right? I don't think people expect a superhero. What they expect is us to do the best we can, usually. I don't know. You might be in a spot that's not like that, but even the most toxic organizations I've been a part of, like you win 60% of the room if you open an announcement like that and then say, you know what, we're going to keep evaluating, we're going to do the best we can. If I'm getting this wrong, like come talk to me about it, but like here's where we're going.
And I think because that's vulnerability-based trust is one of the most effective ways to build trust. And we've talked about trust in the past on this podcast, but it is the foundation for everything. And I think when a leader is willing to say that I don't know the right answer here, I have never experienced this before. I need time to process this. I don't know exactly what to do in this situation. And here's what I do know, and here's what we're going to be doing in the meantime, because people are looking for direction in a time of crisis. And at the same time, they also want to hear from their leader. And every human being can relate to human experience. And sharing the humanity and sharing the human experience will serve to bring a team closer together. And what I've learned about sharing humanity in my lifetime is our tendency is to want to protect the people we love from pain.
Mhm.
So that often internalizes into I'm not going to share my pain because that is, by extension, inflicting pain on the people I care about. And when we do that, we cut ourselves off from real, true connection. We cut off community. I learned this at a very early age. I had a family member that I internalized as a child that this family member can't handle when I'm having a hard time. And I chose to only share positive things and events with this person. And that pattern continued in my life. I only felt comfortable sharing positive, comfortable things.
Yeah.
And part of that took me years to realize came from a place of wanting to protect the other person, and by extension, protecting me from the discomfort of seeing their discomfort.
Yeah.
And we do that a lot as leaders. We are not comfortable with discomfort with our own or someone else's. And we want to protect them and we want to protect ourselves. Not consciously, we do this subconsciously. So we withhold things that are difficult. Or if someone is experiencing difficulty, we may, to use your word, dismissive, not blatantly often, but unintentionally.
Okay.
And I think for me, that's been a big learning. For true connection and true community, you also have to share the pain and the difficult experience. Otherwise, you're only having half of an experience. because life is wonderful and life is hard. And sometimes both at the same time.
Yeah, it's the hard that makes it worth doing. Um, and on the way, kind of my final thought here. One, a thank you to my friend Doug, who had an amazing sense of humor and is someone that I would not have made it through college without. And my life is better for him being part of it. But there was 2 weeks, prior to Doug's passing, Hannah and I had a conversation, and she asked me, what's he doing? Gave her an update. And I haven't talked to Doug in a couple days. I need to check in with him. I just wrote, call Doug on the top of the sheet of paper, my list of things to do for the next day. And, for 10 days, like life happened, and I never got around to calling Doug. So when I got the call that we had lost, like that was still at the top of the list. Like it was still the next thing that I was going to do. And, it was right then that I just found to like not allow the urgent to overtake the most important. Do the important things and prioritize the important things, and don't let the urgent run the day.
And I made a similar mental note when we had that conversation because I hadn't talked to Doug in a while because of circumstances and him not being a direct part of our teaming for some time. And I leave a note to call Doug. And 10 days later, I get a phone call from you. Here you on. And it's the first thing that I did.
Now, I in no way, I don't, I'm not saying that changes the outcome. That's not a position. It's just the fact that my lesson learned is to do the thing that I intend to be at the top of the list. And, as a result of that, it won't ever happen again. Not as long as I have agency over that decision. So, that's probably my last thing is to, embrace the authentic or the authenticism in the relationships that we do carry. And that's what makes it all worth it. Those are my last go for today.
Love you, man.
Yeah.
And just to wrap up here, and then Chris, if you can read us out. This podcast is about work and leadership. I love that we can have this conversation here. I just invite anyone that wants to be able to love one another and lead through the really hard stuff. Like, we welcome you, welcome to the journey. And this is why policy doesn't check all the boxes, right? I mean, that's our belief, like the willingness to have these conversations puts a stake in the ground about what it means to work together, have real community. And each situation is its own situation, right? No policy can tell you what to do if someone is so disruptive they can't be on your team anymore, or someone's spouse gets sick, or someone loses a family member. Like, you got to be a human being. And yeah, welcome to life.
Welcome to the human experience.
Okay, well, a real pick me up today on Magic in the Room.
Join us next time.
Join us next time when we will discuss.
Wait till you see our next barn burner.
Right. let's talk about nuclear war next time.
Yeah.
So, um,
Politics.
yeah. Okay, well, really appreciate both of you. Thank you all so much for listening. We will see you next time. Chris, you want to read us out?
You bet. Magic in the Room is a production of Purpose and Performance Group. You can find all of our previous episodes at magicintheroom.com, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Our music is from Evan Grimm. You can find his music on Apple Music. And this episode is produced by, new producer alert, Ethan Babylon at Babylon Virtual Productions, and was recorded live in Tulsa, Oklahoma.